Welcome back to another episode. Today's episode, we're going to be jumping into our chemical romance. Why are we getting so exposed to all these certain chemicals in our environment, and what are they doing to our health? Are they part of your health struggle, and do we need to have a game plan about them? So we're going to probably divide this up into two different episodes because there are a bunch of different chemicals that we have problems with, but today's episode is really going to be geared towards plastics and PFASs. Again, some people are aware of this issue, some people are not. In the research world, we're getting more and more data coming out on how prevalent these are in our bodies and our tissues, and how much it's disrupting good physiology and function to the human body. I want to make sure you guys are not blind to the issues here. Can we find ways to clean up the environment, remove and minimize some of these plastics on our day-to-day life? And if we can do that, I think this is going to be a very accomplished, successful conversation today. So again, dialing in on plastics first. Okay, so microplastics are plastics that are less than 5 millimeters in size. We can accumulate them by breathing them in, ingesting them, eating them, drinking them, and dermal exposure are the primary routes, right? So them being on our skin and transferring in through our skin. So the most common ones are going to be your PE or your polyethylene. Polyethylene is found in plastic bags, bottles, food packaging, containers, shampoo bottles, cosmetics. Most common route of exposure is through ingestion, right? We eat, drink something that consumes it, inhalation, urban dust, plastic film, and wear. We breathe that stuff in. The next one's going to be polypropylene. It's found commonly in yogurt containers, bottle caps, takeout containers, and baby bottles. Fun. Exposure is commonly going to come through from hot food containers, especially when you microwave this stuff up. There are so many companies and so many people are trying to do the right thing. Trying to eat better, but they're getting pre-made foods. I don't care what the company is. If it's coming in a plastic or a polymer version, it is not helping. And then you microwave and you heat this stuff up, which just leaches the chemicals out of it and makes them more likely be in the food that you're eating. Not to mention, how hot is it when they put the food in there, seal it, package it, ship it off to the store. There's so many different aspects to that. Polystyrene found in your styrofoam cups, takeout containers, your little packaging peanuts that you see in boxes. So your most common exposure is going to be through food containers and ingestion on that one. You also see it a lot in seafood, just because, again, our oceans are getting hit with so much plastics and it's getting taken up into the meat of the animals we eat. Polyethylene terephthalate found in water bottles, soda bottles, food trays. Again, most of our exposure is going to come via ingestion, via drinking cheap, crappy plastics. Clothing fibers is another one. Again, I'm sitting here, and then the more you go through this, the more I don't want you to be overwhelmed. I want you to be frustrated to take action and start just making small changes to your home, your household, because this can have monumental impact over time. We spend so much time on, especially when we do a good diet, like it can't have other aspects that are just leaching in. So if you're bringing food to work, have a glass container, right? If you're drinking water and bring that, have it in a stainless steel container or a glass container, but not one that's going to leach plastic into your body. Okay. Last one is going to be your polyvinyl chloride. Your plumbing pipes is where that's going to be mostly found. Your vinyl flooring, your synthetic leathers, off-gassing from those pipes, inhalation, indoor dust, being in built new homes, new construction, new builds, you're going to have a common exposure. And last but not least, I know I said the last one was the last one, nylon and polyester microfibers. So again, these are mostly found in your clothings, your synthetic textiles, your carpets, and exposure is going to be mostly via inhalation. So your laundry, you're drying your fabrics, And again, and that gets into water. So we ingest it, we breathe it in. Again, what can we start to do about it? So I want us to, for those who have been around, let's say, in the 80s and 90s or before, just think in your head how much plastic in your lifetime has kind of made its way in more and more things, right? We probably didn't, drinking bottled water was not around probably for the first part of my life, and probably I'm not sure when it became more common and prevalent, maybe early 2000s, late 90s. But again, think of that time, it's changed. Clothing, right? The sport wear, the athletic wear. I'm telling you right now, like I spent a decent price on this shirt. I love it. But I'm sitting here and it's this stretchy material because it's made up of these synthetic plastic fibers, these sweat wicking fibers, right? So your yoga gear, your athletic wear, you get hot and you heat yourself up and you start to sweat, you start to open blood vessels, and you're hoping to exchange heat to cool down, but you're also making it incredibly easy to absorb these fibers, and then you're rubbing in it and it's getting friction that breaks these fibers down and make them smaller and easier for you to absorb. It's just crazy when you start to look at it. So let's just go through like the common ones in your athletic gear are going to be polyester, which is really a combination of your polyethylene terephthalates. Again, most prevalent fiber in our active athletic wear. And again, it helps it be sweat resistant or moisture wicking, so it dries quickly. It doesn't really show like the sweat stains, right? But picture a time like cotton used to be so much more common, and we've just slowly evolved. The other day I was looking to buy a suit. I'm like, man, I really like the way these suits fit. It kept on seeing. I must have clicked on it once, or my Instagram feed heard what I was talking about and started just like blasting me with like nice form-fitting suits. And I'm telling you that I was like, oh yeah, I really like this. Like, maybe I'm gonna buy one or two. And I start to kind of go down and I start looking. I'm like, wait a sec. Like, and I watch them demo it and it has this stretch to it. And I'm sitting here. I'm like, if it stretches like that, then what the is it made out of, right? And sure enough, you start looking into it, and it's made of these, plastic fibers. I'm like, I'm not spending $600 a suit or more for crap that is going to make me sick. I'll find older base products that are not as flexible, but again, so what? People look good in those suits. Like go back to the older European version of like the good quality suits from over there. And again, they're not going to have as much crap in them. But again, I'm just telling you, it's getting into our system left, right, and center, and we got to start doing something about it, and we have to be the advocates for it. Other kind of polyester was the first one in your common like workout gear. Again, you have lots of ways these can get into your body. Inhalation, you're breathing, you're huffing and puffing, running, working out in these things. You're heating up, you're having friction and breaking the fibers down. The other aspect too is like then when you wash them, right? I mean, I'll go through some crazy stats here later on talking about the estimated amount that breaks down per a wash cycle of these fibers. Then we dry them in heat and heat them up. Again, hope your dryer's shoving that stuff outside, but it's going into the air. And again, are we taking this stuff via inhalation as well? Nylon, again, it's been around for a while, but your form-fitting things, your sports bras, right? So you think about that and you look at how these disrupt and have immune-related consequences, cancer-related consequences, and women, they're potentially supporting your ladies up top. Is there an issue with it, right? Again, something to think about. Again, nylon fibers may contain residual monomers or additives, aka bisphenols and dyes. And again, with endocrine disrupting properties, hormone sabotaging properties, and we're sitting them next to our breast tissue, or we wear them on our other vital private parts, and it exposes them to other hormone producing tissue in men and other sensitive areas in women. It's so crazy when you start to think about this. And again, as a provider that hears people come in and describe and talk about these things, it's hard not to think that these issues are a part of the story. And again, so let's go through studies on micro shedding from active wear. Brown et al. Published a study in Environmental Science and Technology that found synthetic garments, particularly polyester and acrylic, shed thousands of microfibers per garment per wash. Napper and Thompson in 2016, machine wash polyester fleece released over 700,000 fibers per load of laundry. 700,000 fibers. Freeing it up, breaking it down for it to be easier to go in your skin, inhale it, or go out into our drinking water, make it some way into there, and again, drink it right back in if you're not filtering. McElrath et al. In 2019, yoga pants and athletic leggings made from polyester blends released tens of thousands of fibers during stimulated physical movement. So what they did in the lab, they basically put it on a robot that simulated human movement, aka your thighs rubbing together, your arms rubbing together and breaking it down. And they found that it released tens of thousands of these fibers to be easier to break down and absorb into your skin or inhale. Additional studies on microplastics. This is where it starts to get frightening and alarming. So published in the New England Journal of Medicine in March of 2024, microplastics and nanoplastics in atheromas and cardiovascular events. So looking at the role of these things in cardiovascular events. So what they found is they went through and they sampled vascular tissue in the neck. Let me go through and exactly find the study, because it's terrifying when you start to think about it. But they found that I think it was like 50% of the vascular plaques had microplastics in them. So, and those who had a stroke or cardiovascular event were, I think it was tenfold higher, or no, not tenfold, but significantly higher to have a higher concentration in the plaques in their carotid artery, which is insane, right? Are these part of what's damaging the vessel wall to make your immune system send a complex there to try to repair tissue that ultimately forms plaque that dislodges and can go cause some nasty cardiovascular events? Again, it's crazy when you start thinking about it. Then there's another one that's published this year, March 31st of 2025, when they go through and they talk about microplastics in brain tissue. So what they found in this study in Nature Medicine and published this year, micro and nanoplastics were found in all brains that they examined. So every brain had them accumulated. Now, we'll go into a point here that we need to touch on about, okay, why might we find them in the brain at this concentration? And then they also found that, yes, they were 7 to 30 times higher in brain tissue, or the organ in the brain, compared to liver and kidney and other organs. This is, again, microplastics love fat. So picture, go to your grocery store and you're going to go buy some cooking oil. What is it in? I hope you're buying it in the glass jar, right? Picture it's been sitting on the shelf for who knows how many months, exposed to who knows how much heat through the shipping, sitting on the shelf for how many months, leaching the plastic from that bottle into the cooking oil. Again, it's going to be super easy for it to be a great delivery system for your body. So one simple thing we can change: buy your cooking oils, your avocado oil, your olive oil, your coconut oil, ghee in glass containers. Go back towards glass. Stop reinforcing the bad habits, the toxins, and the companies don't have to change if you keep buying this crap in the plastic they're packaging it. Buy it in the glass containers. Please, I'm telling you. Now, going into the study a little bit more, not only did they find it in brain, but they found those who had been diagnosed with dementia before passing had 10 times the amount of the microplastics in their brain. So not only do we all have it in our brain, now they equate like we all have at least a teaspoon or a tablespoon of plastics in our brain, but they found the ones with dementia 10 times more taken up in their vessels and the fat tissue in the cells of their brain. As somebody that's had lost my grandmother, but also my mom at the age of 64 to dementia, to Alzheimer's, this to me is like, it has to be on our radar. right? We can't sit here and be like, oh, okay, I'm just going to continue to choose to drink out of plastic. Like, it doesn't have to be that way. The most common plastic that they found was that very first one I mentioned, which was polyethylene, that one in your plastic containers, your coatings, that one that is commonly found in your plastic bags, your bottles, your packaging, your shampoo bottles. Think cosmetics too. I mean, women, the amount of cosmetics that again, women, by the time they walk out the door, we think, there's already this data showing they're exposed to about 400 chemicals before they leave the house, just from the cosmetic aspect of this. When we look at that, there are so many that, again, not only are they through cosmetics, but plastics through cosmetics. I'll go through and I'll share a stat later about the amount of chemicals coming in through cosmetics in the plastic world. And they'll manipulate the wording of it and call it like natural fibers or polymers. But again, it's just a fancy way for, hey, this stuff might be harming you and we don't want to tell you about it. So again, most common one found in the brain, making about 75% found in the brain was polyethylene. The other alarming fact is that this is becoming a much larger problem at an alarming rate. So they did this study and dissected and studied these brains from 2016 to 24. And from that time, they saw a 50% increase in brain samples from 2016 to 2024 in the amount of plastics. So in 8 years, they saw this problem increase by 50% in their brain samples. So it's not going away, it's getting worse. And it makes sense. Like, we're seeing more and more clothing, all right? Our kids, our little pajamas with Frozen and stuff, is like this stretchy microplastic crap. This just makes me want to burn all that stuff when you start getting into it. Another study talking about microplastics in lung tissue from the Environmental Science and Technology Journal induces in cytokine and chronic inflammatory issues in lung tissue, deep in lung tissue when you inhale it. This leads to constant activation of immune cells like your tissue macrophages and dendritic cells, leading to immune dysregulation. Again, you look at the rate of autoimmune issues, asthma, all these things are exponentially increasing since the late 90s. Are plastics having a role? I'm not saying they are the only issue, but again, we have to be mindful of all the potential problems. So let's go through some random facts on plastics. All right, so here's the one on the cosmetic. So a single cosmetic product contains synthetic or plastic polymers. They can make up to about 90% of the product. So 90% of your product can be made from these synthetic plastics and polymers. Now, these companies often try to deceive you. And again, they don't want to tell you, like, oh, microplastics are in this. Go enjoy putting it on your face or rubbing it into your armpit, where you sit there and have it hot and absorb into your armpit. But again, they're using the term, instead of plastic, they're using phrases like water-soluble polymers, liquid polymers, biodegradable polymers. If you see these, do some gatekeeping of what's going into your body and scan your cosmetics. See if we can find better options. There are companies that are trying to cater and provide safer, cleaner options for you. Polyvinyl alcohol is the most commonly and widely used water-soluble polymer in cosmetics, with an annual consumption of 650,000 tons. 650,000 tons. And they're just trying to label it as water-soluble polymers. So be on the lookout. It's everywhere. According to a research study, 35% of primary microplastic present in the oceans worldwide are a result of synthetic textiles from things like clothing, right? So a lot of the stuff that we're wearing with these microplastics are getting into our water supplies, with about 35% of them in the ocean being from the textiles we're wearing. They estimate by 2050, the clothing industry alone will contribute to 2.2 million tons of microplastics floating around in the oceans. Absolutely insane when you start to think about it. So again, I'm not innocent on this part, right? I'm wearing a shirt that's got it right now. You can see how stretchy it is. Again, I am in the process of no longer buying this stuff and voluntarily wearing it on my skin for hours a day. So you think your boxers, your underwear, let's get back to your certified organic products. We want to make sure those are organic because, again, we know we don't want pesticides and herbicides like doused on our clothing as well and soaking in that. But I would hazard a guess you could probably wash those a few times and at least rid some of the toxic burden off that. But again, organic cotton is a good alternative. I know it's not as breathable and sleek and sweat friendly, but who cares? Like, again, we've been slowly trained to move away from this. We used to use this as a common source. We can go back, right? There's been probably billions of dollars of manipulation for us to want to be like, oh, hey, this is how things should be. Let's wear this. So let's just go against the opposite. Let's go the opposite direction and start to solve this problem. All right. So the second chemical I want to jump into, and there's some relationship here with microplastics. They're not the same, but they're PFASs, also known as your forever chemicals. Per and polyfluoroalkyl substances is the really long name, but for today it's PFASs. They're synthetic and they're highly persistent chemicals known as forever chemicals due to their resistance to being broken down. Why is that, right? So they're unique in the sense that they share a carbon fluoride or fluorine bond that is one of the most resilient and stable bonds in organic chemistry. So it makes them very resistant to heat breakdown, water breakdown, and oil breakdown. So you picture that. Your Teflon, right? This is why this stuff is coated on your Teflon. Why? Because it makes it a very good nonstick surface, except for you're gradually, those eggs you're frying it, your vegetables you're cooking it, you're taking this crap up with it, especially when you start to not use the right fork or the right spatula with it. Use one that tears it up, like a metal one. Again, you start to break it down even faster. If you're still using Teflon, like this data has been around for at least 15 years. Like, we need to move away from that, punt it, kick it, get it out of your house. Stainless steel. Go towards something that is a much better option. Okay. Your stain resistant fabrics and carpet, aka your Scotch Guard, your whatever they put on your couch before you buy it to make it stain resistant, again, has PFASs on it. That's why it's stain resistant. So it wicks away just like that Teflon pan. So picture the next time you're having a nap on that couch and you're in shorts and a t-shirt and how much skin's exposed to it, or your kids are doing the same thing. This is these little places where we start thinking about it. It's like, man, we're bombarded by this stuff every single day and it's getting worse. So it makes sense that we're seeing higher and higher concentrations in blood. Food packaging, right? Microwave popcorn bags, fast food wrappers. Again, so you open up that wrapper. You don't want the food sticking to it. It's nice and shiny on the inside. Don't worry, it's not sticking, but it is coated in these PFASs. Your firefighting foams, your waterproof clothing, cosmetics, and dental floss, right? So a lot of your dental floss sticks that make it slide and glide nice and easily have this crap on it, not to mention it's on a cheap plastic handle, and you're grinding that down and in your mouth. Maybe you're chewing on it after. But again, I'm telling you, all these little things are just sitting there getting into your bloodstream. They're messing with your hormones. They're making you fat. They're making it harder to have the ability to lose weight efficiently. Again, and I don't know if you guys feel it, but you might have been like, hey, I've always been able to go on a diet, cut back, start exercising, the weight would fall off. A lot of you feel it's much, much harder. As a provider, I will tell you it's getting harder and harder. There are so many more things that we have to be thinking about, and this is part of the story. There's different types of your PFASs. So there's your perfluorine octanoic acid, which is the main one in Teflon. Your water repellent coatings, your non-stick coatware, contaminated drinking water, textiles. Those are all your main areas. Your PFOSs, sulfonic acid, stain repellents, fabric protectors, your Scotch Guard, right? That's what this is talking about. Your treated carpets, your food wrappers. it's just insane when you start to think about it. Kind of studies on this. So C8 Health Project was a study that was done from 2009 to 2017, and it included roughly 70,000 data points or people were included in it, and it showed that there is a lot of immune dysfunction and higher rates of infections, people exposed to your PFAOs or PFOAs, contaminated water, especially in the Ohio and West Virginia regions. They also showed that these PFASs affected your T and B lymphocyte function, so suppressing your immunoglobulins, your ability to form antibodies and fight infection, and impaired your immune signaling. So that's that one study. Here's some studies on cancer risk. This same study, when they looked at data and they published in 2012, exposure and the amount of exposure increased your kidney cancer and testicular cancer rates based on 70,000 or 69,000 people evaluated. Another study from Environmental Perspectives, published by Barry A.L., found a significant association, again, between PFOAs, PFASs, and kidney and testicular cancer with a dose-dependent relationship. So the more you had exposed or the more you had in your tissues, the higher the risk. Another study done by the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, that's a tongue twister, ATSDR, basically classifies PFAS as a likely carcinogen, aka it's more than likely causing cancer in humans. We don't know the dosing rate, but again, that's how they classify it. They basically say they disrupt tumor suppressor genes. They cause oxidative stress and cause epigenetic modifications, which again, now you start damaging DNA. You open up your genome and your DNA, your blueprint, and you start to have cancer risk go up. You start to prematurely age as well. And oxidative stress is probably the mechanism that's going to be doing that. Oxidative stress loves to damage and unravel fragments of DNA and prematurely ages us. Hormone disruption with PFASs. Lopez and Espinoza in the Journal of Endocrinology and Metabolism found that boys exposed to PFASs were more likely to have lower levels of testosterone at puberty. Go figure. Are you wearing this stuff on your junk? Like, are your undies wrapped in this stuff? Like, who knows? But again, like, just start thinking about these things on every level. So we start having an idea of like, okay, where can I do better and start cleaning up? Jensen and Leffers in 2008 showed that PFASs interact with estrogen and androgen receptors. I just did a podcast talking about hormone receptors before, and we're going through now talking about the issue with how these chemicals can start to have issues and mess with these receptors. So if you haven't listened to the receptor podcast, go listen to it. But you can have great hormones, but if you don't have the landing site for that hormone to go to, then you can still have all the symptoms of that hormone problem. So this study really talks about how these chemicals mess with your estrogen and testosterone receptors, interfering with their hormone signaling. Another study from that ATSDR group identifies associations with thyroid dysfunction, particularly high TSH or hypothyroid patients, and low T4 in adults and children. How they mimic and inhibit sex hormones. They disrupt thyroid hormone transport and metabolism, affecting the metabolic rate and reproductive health. So we become more infertile, more thyroid dysregulation. Again, I can go on and on with these things. It's crazy. Let's look at how we can see PFAS's impact behavior and neurological conditions. So Bong and peers found in environmental research study, prenatal exposure to PFASs was associated with ADHD symptoms and poor executive function in children. Again, that's how you think, you talk, you communicate, right? So what you're doing during pregnancy and bringing that in had a higher risk of transferring issues onto the baby. So the more exposure to PFASs during pregnancy and exposure to the fetus increase this risk. Another study from Environment Health Perspect, higher PFAS levels linked to delayed motor development and cognitive issues in infants. And they don't even have a say in it. Like, the kids don't have a say, right? And this is where it gets me frustrated. Because again, and not that the parents are doing it on purpose, but we just don't know. People don't know. They don't know how bad this is and how it impacts them, how it might be impacting their little ones, why they might not be focusing or developing at the rate they want. All they want is their kid to reach their milestones and develop and have a fair chance, right? So the kid doesn't have a chance, and most parents, we have no clue where this stuff is and how much we're being exposed to. Sunderland and peers in 2019 reported that PFASs had an impact on our dopamine pathways, affecting mood and cognition. Another one. Now, the ways they do it, just like they mess with hormone receptors, they also mess with our neurotransmitter receptors and where our neurotransmitters need to land. They can cross the blood-brain barrier, which means they can get into a very special spot. They love fat, so they love our brains. Most of it's over 70% fat, so they like to stay there once they get there. If you picture, we have things that help our brain have more survivability. We call those things neurotropic factors. The most recognized one is brain-derived neurotropic factor, but it can alter our production and our levels of brain-derived neurotropic factor, right? Exercise helps boost it, but again, if you are drinking or consuming things with PFASs while you're exercising, you're just canceling out the brain benefit or some of it from this. Cardiovascular aspects to your PFASs. PFASs impair your nitric oxide in the vascular wall. So again, you start thinking now you start having potential for vascular compliance issues, blood pressure issues. You're not as efficient at moving blood to where you need it. Nitric oxide is critical for vascular health. And when you start to damage that vascular wall, the tissue is less resilient at making nitric oxide. Anybody in the workout world that has ever taken a pre-workout with L-arginine. L-arginine is kind of the building block into our nitric oxide pathways. And so again, we take these things trying to boost our nitric oxide pathways, but are we also taking things in that just damage the place it gets made? Is it worth the money if you're still consuming and being exposed to these things? It promotes vascular constriction, aka, higher diastolic pressure, inflammation, vascular stiffness. Increase your lipids, right? These chemicals love to stay in fat. It makes your body have a harder time breaking down fat because it has these forever chemicals in it that doesn't know how to take the toxin out of. And hypertension, we talked about that. Atherosclerosis and plaque formation. I already talked about that study with the microplastics. The other chemical included in that study was PFAS, and over 58% of human carotid arterial plaques with a direct deposit in the vascular wall, right? That's how it causes issues with nitric oxide synthesis pathways as well. But it's also how it causes vascular damage, recruits the immune system to form plaque. And again, we always vilify cholesterol. Cholesterol is this fatty, like this reparative fatty substance that wants to go and help repair tissue, but is it being recruited to this tissue because there are these chemicals, these forever chemicals being bound to it, oxidizing our lipids? Here's a study talking about arrhythmias and cardiac remodeling. They found that it altered calcium channel function, was associated with left ventricular overgrowth. Again, just crazy. So what's the moral of the story? What can we do about it, right? So how do we get PFASs and microplastics out of our body? How about this? Better yet, how do we just start to have a game plan to reduce them, right? So one is just wherever you can, right? Again, go get glass containers for your food to bring to work. Costco, you can get them. They have plastic lids. So just take the lid off if you have to heat it up. Again, put it in there after the food is cooled. Don't put the lid on until the food is cooled. But at least it's sitting on top of glass, not this cheap, crappy plastic. Ditch your plastic water bottles. Don't continue to buy them, right? Picture the construction worker, the hard worker, and especially we're in Texas, 100-degree heat. You got that 24-pack of plastic water bottles sitting outside on the concrete, getting heated up. who knows about the trucking it was traveled on, but sitting there in UV light getting broken down and heat getting broken down, and then you're just going to sit there and drink it. So think about these things. So ditch the plastic water bottles, get something that's stainless steel, a good Yeti, a tumbler, a glass bottle, glass food containers. That's a start. Take your clothing. Okay, how can we start moving clothing back to good organic cotton sources like bamboo, things that we used to use? Go back to these. It's also much more sustainable, better for the environment, and better for our body and our future generations and our health. Cosmetics. Looking through your cosmetics, like, do they have it in there? Don't tolerate it if you do. Your cleaning products, are they in there? Paper plates. Why do you think paper plates have a sheen and they don't allow things to stick and penetrate through? Because again, they have these chemicals on them. So start ditching them. If you do have these fabrics, don't toss them in the dryer. Use your liquid detergents over your granular detergents, because the grainy aspects is going to be more likely to disrupt the fibers. Wash in cold water, not hot water when you have these fabrics. Try to wash less often. That's tough, especially if it's workout gear. But again, I'm telling you, start taking little small changes. Do the best that we can. Drink filtered water, right? Get a system that filters this stuff out. Maybe this is another talk where we can bring somebody on that specializes in this, where it's like, hey, here are the best water systems to remove, all these different chemicals, because some might be better at certain things and some might be worse at other things. But again, I would say that's a very good start, right? Going out to eat. If you go out to eat and you bring leftovers home, maybe you split a meal with the loved one, right? Split the meal with the wife or the husband. So you don't have leftovers that are going to come home in that crappy styrofoam container with this crap on it. Don't do takeout. Eat in more often. If you're going to get food, just go into the restaurant and eat it, so you don't take it home in this, I have, like, every time I go to, if I get Thai food, I see, the soups, they're just in a cheap plastic container, this hot piping soup. And I'm just sitting here, I'm like, man, like, people think they're getting this great soup, yet they're getting a whole crap ton of this plastic and crap in that soup. And again, here they are, they're probably trying to do something good with their health and go for the soup. But here they are, just crushing their hormones anyways, potentially still going to have the weight gain issues because of the chemical burden that they're throwing at their body that they don't even know how to get rid of. So let's say we want to be better about helping the body push these things out, right? So our body needs to get rid of things in detox. So again, bowel function. Most of these things are going to be exited through the body by you pooping them out, right? Go back, listen to the talk on leaky gut, right? If your gut is a good filter, if you ingest them, the better the filter the GI and the less leaky, the more likely they're going to stay in the intestinal tract and you're just going to poop them out. So again, make sure you don't have a leaky gut. 2, make sure you have a good transit time. You're at least pooping once a day, right? You're hydrated. You're drinking, if you're 150 pounds, you're drinking half your body weight in ounces of water. You're, 75 ounces is that example for 150, 100 ounces if you're 200 pounds, right? Make sure you're hydrated so you can move these things and flush them out. And you're having a bowel movement once a day, right? At least as a minimum, right? People always like, oh, how often, should I go? Like, if you have a dog, you feed the dog, they usually go to the bathroom within 45 minutes. We should be pretty similar to that because it's a reflexive system. You put food in, a bolus of food goes through the stomach, hits sphincters, and it starts off a chain reaction to also allow things to move further out. So again, do you have normal movement through the GI tract? Make sure you have good bile flow, right? Bile is how we process and move fats, our lipids, our cholesterol molecules, and then fat-based toxins out of the body. So looking at things that help increase your biliary function. So your dandelion root, your phosphatidylcholine helps. Taurine helps. You can take bile acids. If you've had your gallbladder removed, take some bile acids. Help your body have a solution to handle these things. Magnesium citrate or oxide, again, that from a bowel standpoint, if you're constipated, usually about 200 to 400 milligrams of magnesium citrate with a cup of water. Wait. If it's not enough, repeat again after a few hours until you get a bowel movement. That's generally how you recommend dosing it. Again, if you're having this problem, this was just a kind of a generalized recommendation, but meet with your provider, figure out how to solve it. This is not medical advice. Binders, add some binders in, right? So what are binders? Binders are things that want to hold on to chemicals and dance with them and make sure that they don't get reabsorbed as they move through the GI tract. So they're trying to help you guarantee an exit strategy. So your main binders, I'll go through some of them: modified citrus pectin, activated charcoal, chlorella, zeolite are your kind of main ones. You have enterosegal, silica-based ones. Again, not a huge fan of those, but modified citrus pectin is really good for certain heavy metals, inflammatory molecules, and certain persistent pollutants in the environment. Activated charcoal, really good at binding a lot of endocrine disrupting chemicals that do love fat. So your BPA, bisphenol A, bisphenol products, your phthalates, because again, in theory, they're not microplastics, but they love to get bound into those microplastics, and they altogether love fat tissue. But yeah, your activated charcoal is really good for your lipid soluble toxins. Chlorella loves to bind your plasticizers, some heavy metals. Zeolite may bind, again, it has been shown they think it binds PFASs and inflammatory load. Again, there's nothing breaking these things down that we know of, but can we bind and make them pull out so you have less chance to pull into the bloodstream? Cholestyramine is a medication to lower cholesterol. Again, potential some benefit with PFASs as well. Again, either way, probably not a bad idea for us to all consider a little bit of binder on and off throughout the week. Especially if you know, like, hey, I'm wearing this stuff every day, I'm drinking out of this stuff, and I'm trying to reduce it. Here's some food for thought. Maybe we start adding some of that in. And that's probably as far as I'm going to go on this stuff, because as we get into phase 1 and phase 2 detox, like, I don't even want to touch on that. There's a lot of things that you can do for phase 1 and phase 2. But that's a whole other conversation in itself. And to me, I can't do it justice here. But it's important that, before you even worry about pushing phase 1 or phase 2 detox pathways, all of it's going to get dumped into the upper GI. That better be dealt with first. So the leaky gut part and motility part is anyways where you want to start. Sweating is another way, right? So there's some studies that show that there's higher concentration of PFASs and phthalates in sweat. So go jump in an infrared sauna, sweat. And when you do, wick away, like, have it, like, you're pulling them away. You're trying to pull and absorb that off as you sweat. Same thing when you exercise, sweat, wick away, shower in not a hot shower, because hot shower again opens up tissue. Do a cooler shower after, at least when you first rinse, and exercise, right? Those are some key things. So I know this was a lot of information, but I just want people to start realizing and thinking about, how can I start having less of a chemical romance going on around me? And how do we start solving this issue where we kind of get these chemicals that love to get stored in fat, and we start having a way to get rid of them, right? Because they are not good for our health. They're not good for our brain. They're not good for our cardiovascular system. They're making us sick. They're making us gain weight. They're probably pushing us towards cardiovascular disease at an unnecessary rate that doesn't have to happen, as well as cognitive risk. So start doing little things. That's all I ask. Maybe the first month, go after food containers. Second month, go after what you drink out of. Third to sixth month, I challenge you to start reducing, buy new clothes or cotton instead. And start, maybe it's just that's the strategy. You're not buying more of the same old stuff, okay? Ziploc bags, all that stuff. Just start thinking about how often we are just getting exposed and presented, and start making small, meaningful change. It may not seem like much today, but over time, it's going to add up to be much better than not doing anything at all. So I hope this was helpful. Again, please, this is not to be taken as medical advice. This is purely educational and supportive, so you can have more information to move and act with, whether or not you need to find a provider or bring this information to your provider so you can make better action. again, until next time, where we're going to be jumping in onto the heavy metal side of the chemical world, I hope you guys are doing well, and we'll talk